I'd learned to stay silent for 29 years until that morning outside the Easton County Traffic Court, when Vernon backhanded me across my left ear. He thought the crowd and honking cars would swallow everything. He didn't see the side door crack open, and Judge Mara Keaton step out, case files still in hand. By noon, I had a temporary protection order. By evening, I had evidence of forged signatures on a mortgage in my name I'd never known existed. On day 3, he came back violating the court order right in front of the county cameras. I didn't run anymore. I set the trap. My name is Hallie Quinn, and I'm not laughing anymore. The November morning air bit through my Northline Systems polo as I climbed the courthouse steps, exhausted from another overnight deployment shift. My eyes burned from staring at server logs. Until 6 a.m., but Mom needed these traffic fine deferment papers filed before noon. Vernon's truck idled at the curb, diesel fumes mixing with his cigarette smoke. "You done yet?" He didn't look up from his phone. "Almost." I kept my voice neutral, the way I'd learned. "Just need to—" "Should have taken the blame for my fender bender like I asked." His door slammed. "Would have saved us both time." My mother, Lydia, stood by the newspaper box, studying the headlines like they held winning lottery numbers. She'd perfected the art of selective blindness over their 12-year marriage. "I can't claim fault for an accident I wasn't in. Vernon, insurance fraud is—" The backhand came fast. My left ear exploded in white noise as I stumbled against the stone railing. Coffee from some stranger's cup splashed across the sidewalk. People scattered or froze. That universal dance of public violence. "Ungrateful bitch," he hissed, grabbing my collar. "After everything I—" "Sir, step back, now." The voice carried authority that made Vernon's fingers unlock. A woman in judge's robes stood 3 feet away, having emerged from the courthouse's side entrance. The brass nameplate on the door read, "Chambers M. Keaton." 2 court officers materialized beside her. One guided Vernon back while the other steadied me. My ear rang like a fire alarm. "Ma'am, are you injured?" Judge Keaton's eyes cataloged everything: the fresh red mark, my defensive posture, Vernon's clenched fists. "Officer Martinez, please escort this man to the security office. Get his information." "This is family business," Vernon protested, but his voice had lost its edge. "Predators hate witnesses." "Assault is the state's business." Judge Keaton turned to me. "Would you like to file a report?" I glanced at Mom. She'd finally looked up, her face a mask of practiced neutrality. 29 years of keeping peace, of not making waves, of Vernon's just stressed about money, and you know how he gets. "Yes," I said. My voice sounded strange through the ringing. "Yes, I would—" Judge Keaton nodded to the second officer. "Take her statement. I'll provide my witness account." She paused, studying my face with an expression I couldn't read. "Have you filed for an emergency protective order before?" "No, ma'am." "Officer Chen will explain the process. You can petition today. The clerk's office has the forms. Given what I just witnessed, I believe you'll qualify for an ex parte order." She was offering me an escape route in broad daylight, in language Vernon couldn't manipulate or minimize. For the first time in my adult life, someone with actual power had seen what happened to me. Vernon tried one more time as they led him inside. "Lydia, tell them." But Mom was already walking to the truck, her silence louder than any scream. Inside the courthouse, my hands shook as I filled out forms. Officer Martinez brought me ice for my ear and a victim's advocate named Denise, who spoke in calm, measured tones about next steps. Through the window, I watched Vernon's truck pull away. Mom driving. "The judge wants you to know she's already submitted her statement," Denise said. "Having a judge as a witness that's unusual. Lucky, actually." Lucky. I pressed the ice pack against my ear and thought about that word. 29 years of walking on eggshells, of making myself small, of believing this was just how families worked. It had taken 30 seconds of violence in public view to crack that foundation. By 11:47 a.m., I held a temporary emergency protective order. Vernon Pike couldn't come within 500 feet of me, my workplace, or my apartment. It was just paper, but it felt like armor. That night, I found the mortgage notice that would change everything. But in that moment, signing my name to the protective order with a court officer as witness, I made a different kind of promise. No more silence, no more shrinking. Vernon had made a crucial mistake. He'd hurt me where justice could see. The envelope arrived 3 days later, mixed in with grocery store circulars and credit card offers. Red Barn Bank's logo caught my eye. I didn't have accounts there. The address window showed my apartment number, but a different street. Some postal worker's Monday morning mistake had delivered it to me instead of 1847 Riverside Drive. I almost tossed it back in the outgoing mail. Almost. But the name stopped me cold. Hallie A. Quinn. My middle initial is J, for Jane. Inside, a delinquency notice screamed in bold red letters. Second warning, $287,000 mortgage on a property I'd never seen. The signature on the photocopied documents looked like mine if I'd signed during an earthquake. Close enough to fool someone who didn't know better. My hands shook as I dialed Austin's number. My half-brother had escaped Vernon's house at 18 and never looked back. We talked maybe twice a year, usually around holidays when guilt overrode distance. Hallie, he sounded surprised. Everything okay? I need help. The words came hard. Vernon, there's a mortgage. My name. I think he... Slow down. I heard him close a door, his voice dropping. Tell me exactly what you're looking at. I read him the notice. The silence stretched so long I thought we'd disconnected. That son of a bitch, he finally said. I knew he'd escalate after the construction business tanked. Are you somewhere safe? I have a protective order. He hit me. A judge saw. Another pause. Good. Listen, I'll help you figure this out. Not for Mom, not for family, for the truth, and because Vernon needs to finally face consequences. Austin drove down from Columbus the next morning. He looked older, grayer around the temples, but his eyes still held that sharp awareness that comes from growing up watchful. We met at a diner near the highway, spreading the mortgage papers between coffee cups and untouched eggs. See this notary stamp? He pointed to a smudged seal. Ohio notaries have to log every transaction. If you weren't there, then the log's fraudulent too. I stared at the date. 3 months ago, I'd been in Detroit that day, running system updates for a client. I have travel receipts, hotel billing. Good. That's evidence. Austin pulled out his laptop. Let's find out who holds this mortgage. The property was a flip project in Vernon's neighborhood. County records showed it purchased 8 months ago under an LLC, then mysteriously transferred to me without my knowledge. The mortgage originator was Colin Draper at Red Barn Bank's Marrow Creek branch. I know that name, Austin muttered. Draper? He was at Vernon's poker games back when I lived there. Small-town good old boys club. We drove to the bank. Austin insisted on coming inside. Witnesses matter now, he said. Colin Draper looked exactly like his loan officer photo polo shirt, straining over a beer belly. Fake smile that didn't reach his eyes. Miss Quinn. He stood too quickly, knocking over a pencil holder. I wasn't expecting. How can I help you today? You can explain how my signature ended up on loan documents I never signed. His face went through several colors. I'm sure there's a misunderstanding. Let me pull the file. While he typed, I photographed every family photo on his desk, every certificate on his wall. Austin taught me that document everything, even if it seems irrelevant. Here we go. Draper's monitor faced away from us, but I caught his reflection in the window behind him. He was scrolling fast, too fast. You came in with your stepfather. I remember because you seemed tired, mentioned working late. Where are the security videos from that day? We only keep those for 60 days. The notary log, then. State law requires those for 5 years. More color draining. I'll need to check with our compliance department. Austin leaned forward. Check now. We'll wait. 20 minutes later, Draper returned with a photocopy. The entry showed H. Quinn, signed in at 2:47 p.m., but the notary's handwriting looked suspiciously similar to the signature itself, and the timestamp had that peculiar quality of ink that's been written over pencil. "I need to speak with this notary," I said. "Rita Morse. Is she here today?" "She's on vacation. Extended leave." Draper wouldn't meet my eyes. "Perhaps I can have our manager call you." Outside, Austin was already on his phone. "Hey, Marcus. Yeah, it's Austin Hale. I need a favor. Your sister still works at the Secretary of State's office. I need to verify a notary's active status." By evening, we had more pieces. Rita Morse's notary commission had expired 2 weeks before my supposed signing. The signature on my apartment lease from last year, scanned and uploaded to the property management portal, matched the mortgage signature exactly, too exactly, like someone had traced it digitally. "He's not even sophisticated about it," Austin said, disgusted. "But why now? Why risk this?" My phone buzzed. Unknown number. The text made my blood chill. "Drop this or your car won't be the only thing that ends up damaged. Family handles family business." Austin photographed the message with his phone. "Forward that to me, and we're calling the detective on your case, tonight." Detective Raphael Boone arrived within an hour, taking notes in careful handwriting. He studied the mortgage papers under the diner's fluorescent lights, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "Identity theft, fraud, and now witness intimidation," he said finally. "This is bigger than a protective order violation. I'll need to coordinate with the Financial Crimes Unit." "What about my mother?" The question escaped before I could stop it. "Is she involved?" Boone's expression stayed neutral. "We'll investigate all angles. For now, focus on protecting yourself, change your locks, vary your routines, and document any contact attempts." That night, Austin slept on my couch, baseball bat within reach. I lay awake studying the mortgage papers, trying to decode Vernon's endgame. The house was underwater, worth maybe $200,000 in its current state. Why risk federal charges for a losing investment? Unless he never expected me to find out, unless there were other documents, other fraud, a paper trail leading deeper than one desperate flip attempt. "We're going to bury him," Austin said into the darkness, "legally, thoroughly, the way he buried our childhoods." I touched my still tender ear and thought about Judge Keaton's steady gaze, about power and witnesses, and the slow machinery of justice grinding to life. "Yes," I said. "We are—" The assistant district attorney's office smelled like old coffee and photocopier toner. Sloane Mercer sat across from me, her reading glasses perched on silver hair, reviewing Detective Boone's report. Austin shifted beside me, still clutching the folder we'd assembled over 3 sleepless nights. "A judge witnessed the initial assault," she mused. "That's advantageous. Judge Keaton's reputation for integrity is unimpeachable." She looked up. "I can get you limited subpoena power for financial records related to identity theft, but we need to be surgical, no fishing expeditions." "What about the bank's security footage?" I asked. "They claim it's deleted, but—" "DMV," Austin interrupted. "If the notary's log shows 2:47 p.m. and the bank is on Main Street," he pulled up his phone, calculating. "The DMV office is in the same strip mall. They have external cameras for the parking lot. State retention policy is 18 months. Mercer's smile was sharp. "Good catch. I'll draft the subpoena today." 3 days later, we sat in a small viewing room at the DMV's administrative office. The footage was grainy but clear enough. October 15th, 2:30 to 3:00 p.m. Cars came and went. At 2:44, Vernon's truck pulled in. Parking near the bank entrance, he got out alone, no passenger. At 3:07, he left alone. I wasn't there, couldn't have been there. My Northline Systems keycard showed me badging into the Detroit client site at 2:15 p.m. that day, 3 hours away. "Can we get a certified copy of this?" Austin asked the DMV clerk. But the real breakthrough came from the bank's own systems. Mercer's subpoena included electronic access logs, and Colin Draper had made a crucial mistake. The mortgage documents showed digital signatures through DocuSign, each tagged with an IP address. "This is your home internet," Detective Boone pointed to my Spectrum bill. "Different provider, different subnet entirely." I pulled up the technical details. The signatures came from a CenturyLink connection. I've never had CenturyLink. Austin was already typing. "Mom and Vernon have CenturyLink. I remember because Vernon complained about the bills last Christmas." The detective made notes. "We'll need to verify that connection, but this is good. Digital footprints are harder to fake than physical ones." The notary proved even sloppier. Her logbook, when finally produced under legal threat, showed impossible timing: 2 different signings at 2:47 p.m., 3 miles apart. The ink colors varied slightly between entries, and under magnification, the October entries showed compression marks suggesting they'd been written after the pages were already bound. "Rita Morse is coming in voluntarily tomorrow," Boone informed us. "Her lawyer called an hour ago." That evening, Austin and I spread our evidence across my kitchen table like detectives in a movie. Bank statements showed Vernon's construction business hemorrhaging money. The flip house had foundation issues, discovered after purchase. He was underwater before the first hammer swung. "But why you?" Austin wondered. "No offense, but your credit can't be that much better than his." "First-time buyer programs?" The realization hit suddenly. "I've never owned property. Clean credit history. He could get better rates in my name, maybe even grants." My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. "Your brother's truck looks flammable. Shame if something happened while he visits." This time, I didn't panic. I screenshotted it, forwarded to Boone, and grabbed Austin's car keys. "Where are we going?" he asked. "To Radio Shack. We're installing dash cams tonight." The threat escalated Vernon's case from fraud to potential federal charges. Boone moved quickly, getting a warrant for Vernon's phone records. The threatening text traced back to a burner phone, but the tower data placed it within a block of Vernon's house during transmission. A week later, Mercer called with updates. Rita Morse had flipped, admitting Vernon paid her $500 to backdate the notarization. She'd used an expired stamp and falsified her log. In exchange for testimony, she'd avoid jail time but lose her commission permanently. "There's more," Mercer continued. "We pulled Vernon's financial history. This isn't his first attempt. There's a car loan from 2019 under your mother's name she claims not to remember, and a credit card opened in Austin's name that was charged off in 2020. "He's been doing this for years," I breathed. "Pattern behavior strengthens our case. But Hallie, I need you to understand something. Your mother's involvement." "I know." My throat felt tight. "She might have known, might have helped." "We're offering her a deal. Testimony in exchange for immunity on any unknowing participation. But if she was actively involved..." I thought about Mom driving away from the courthouse, her silence in Vernon's truck, all the years of looking away. "Do what you need to do." The investigation kicked into higher gear. Austin found the smoking gun almost by accident. Researching property records online, the LLC that originally bought the flip house. Its registered agent was Vernon's cousin, but the filing documents showed a familiar email, verpike74/CenturyLink.net. The same email associated with old Craigslist postings Austin found through cached Google searches, including one from 3 months ago. Epson Workforce Printer Scanner. Excellent condition. Perfect for home office. "Holy shit," Austin said. He advertised the forgery equipment. I stared at the listing. The photos showed a cluttered garage workspace, tools hanging on pegboard. In the corner, barely visible, was a box of manila folders. When we zoomed in, enhanced the image, we could make out photocopied forms. The top one looked suspiciously like a lease agreement. Detective Boone got his second warrant that afternoon. The search team would execute it tomorrow morning. "You should stay somewhere else tonight," he advised. "Both of you. These situations can escalate when suspects feel cornered." We checked into a hotel near the airport, taking adjoining rooms. Austin insisted on keeping our connecting door open. Neither of us slept well. At 3 a.m., he knocked softly. You awake?"
"Yeah."
He sat on the edge of my bed, looking older in the lamplight. "Remember when we were kids? That time Vernon locked me in the basement for breaking his beer bottle?"
"You were 8?" I remembered. "Mom said you were at a friend's house when I asked."
She knew. She always knew. His voice was steady but sad. "I used to think she was trapped too, but at some point, staying becomes a choice."
"I know. After tomorrow, after all this comes out, we might lose her too, whatever relationship we had left."
I thought about the woman who taught me to tie my shoes, who sang off-key lullabies, who slowly disappeared into Vernon's shadow until only an outline remained. "We lost her years ago," I said finally. "We're just making it official." Austin squeezed my hand. "At least we found each other again. Took Vernon's stupidity to do it, but still." At 6 a.m., Detective Boone called. The search warrant was being executed. By 7 a.m., he called again, his voice electric with discovery. "We found the printer, and so much more. Your original lease agreement, practice signatures, photocopied IDs. He kept everything, like trophies." The tide had turned. Vernon Pike, the man who'd controlled our family through fear and manipulation for over a decade, had been undone by his own arrogance. He'd kept the evidence, never imagining his victims would fight back. Never imagining a judge would step out at exactly the right moment to witness the truth. The Northline Systems parking lot stretched dark and empty at 11 p.m. Security lights casting long shadows between the cars. I'd parked in my usual spot near the back entrance, finishing deployment notes in my car before heading home. The protective order should have meant safety. Should have. Vernon's silhouette materialized from behind the dumpster enclosure, moving fast. My doors were locked, but he pounded on the driver's side window, face twisted with rage. "You think you're smart?" Spit-flecked the glass. "Getting cops to raid my house? You've fucked up everything." I grabbed my phone, hitting record as I speed-dialed 911. The security camera dome 20 feet away blinked its red light active, recording, preserving every second. "This is a violation of the protective order," I said loudly, clearly. "Step away from my vehicle." "Order this." He slammed both fists on the hood, leaving dents. "Drop the charges. Call off your brother, or I'll—" "Unit 47 responding to Northline Systems." My phone speaker crackled. "Officers en route?" Vernon's face went white. He backed away, pointing at me through the windshield. "This isn't over. Your mother knows what you really are. Ungrateful." He ran. By the time officers arrived, his truck was peeling out of the lot. But Marcus, the night security guard, had seen everything from his booth. The cameras had captured everything. My phone had recorded everything. "Clear protective order violation," Officer Kim confirmed, reviewing the security footage on Marcus's monitor. "Threatening behavior, property damage. We'll add this to the file." Detective Boone arrived within 30 minutes, looking grim. "He's panicking. The search warrant turned up more than we expected, evidence suggesting at least 6 instances of identity fraud over 4 years. This confrontation just upgraded his charges." "What about my safety?" "We're filing for an emergency bond revocation hearing tomorrow. Judge Keaton's already been notified she takes protective order violations seriously, especially ones she personally witnessed being issued." By morning, Ada Mercer had filed the motion. The hearing was set for 2 p.m. Austin drove down again, bringing a folder of his own research. "I found something," he said over coffee. "Remember Vernon's cousin who registered the LLC? He's been in federal prison for wire fraud since January. Vernon's been signing documents as him too." "Jesus, how deep does this go?" "Deep enough that Mom had to know." Austin's jaw tightened. "Which is why we need a plan for this afternoon." He was right. At 1:30, we met Boone at a coffee shop called River House, strategically chosen for its acoustics and multiple exits. The detective wore a wire, carefully concealed under his jacket. "Your mother agreed to meet you here at 1:45, he explained. "She thinks it's just you, wanting to reconcile. We'll be at adjacent tables, recording." If she admits knowledge of Vernon's schemes.
I know. My stomach churned. Conspiracy charges.
Only if she was actively involved. If she was coerced or threatened. That's different. We need the truth. Mom arrived 5 minutes early, looking smaller than I remembered. Tired. She sat across from me, fidgeting with her purse strap.
Hallie, sweetheart, you look thin.
Mom,
I kept my voice steady.
Vernon violated the protective order last night. He's getting arrested again.
Her face crumpled slightly.
He's just scared. The bills, the house, everything's falling apart. Because he stole my identity. Austin's too. Who knows how many others. He didn't steal. She caught herself, looking around nervously. It's not stealing when it's family.
My heart sank. Boone, 2 tables over, turned a newspaper page slowly.
Mom, forging my signature is stealing. Using my social security number without permission is fraud. He just needed to borrow your credit for a while. The words tumbled out faster. Just until the house sold. You have that good job. You don't even own property.
It wasn't hurting anyone.
Borrow. I leaned forward. Did you know?
When he was doing it, did you know?
She looked at her hands. He said you'd agreed. Said you were helping family but didn't want Austin to know because of their history. And you believed that.
Her silence was answer enough.
What about the car loan in your name? The credit cards in Austin's? Those were mistakes, she whispered. Old troubles. He's changed.
He threatened to burn Austin's car.
Mom, that's not change. That's escalation. She stood abruptly. I should go. This was a mistake. You don't understand the pressure he's under. I understand he's going to prison. And if you helped him forge those documents, if you provided my information.
I just didn't ask questions.
That's not a crime, is it? Not asking questions? She left trembling, heels clicking on the tile. Boone waited exactly 3 minutes before joining us.
It's enough, he said quietly.
She knew, passive participation, but participation nonetheless. The DA will decide whether to charge her. That night, I sat with Austin in my apartment, listening to sirens in the distance. Tomorrow, Vernon would face the bond revocation hearing. The evidence would be presented: assault, fraud, witness intimidation, protective order violation.
You did the right thing, Austin said.
Recording her.
Did I? She's our mother?
No, his voice was firm. She was our mother. Now she's just someone who chose a predator over her children, again and again and again. My phone buzzed. Ada Mercer. Judge approved bond revocation. Vernon Pike will remain in custody pending trial. Your mother has retained counsel. We're offering a plea deal for testimony. I showed Austin the message. He read it twice, then pulled me into a hug.
It's almost over, he murmured. The legal part, anyway.
But I knew better. The criminal trial would come. The civil case for damages would follow. The slow untangling of years of financial fraud would take months, maybe years. Still, sitting in my small apartment with my brother, my ally, my witness, I felt something I hadn't in decades. Free. Vernon had made a fundamental error. He'd grown so comfortable in his control, so certain of our silence, that he'd forgotten the basic truth of abuse: it only works in darkness. And Judge Mara Keaton had opened the door, letting daylight flood in. The strategy meeting in ADA Mercer's office felt like planning for war. She'd assembled a team: Detective Boone from the criminal side, a young assistant prosecutor named David Park, and surprisingly, Eleanor Vance from the civil division. We're pursuing parallel tracks, Mercer explained, spreading files across her conference table. Criminal prosecution for assault, witness intimidation, protective order violation, and identity theft. Meanwhile, Ms. Vance will help you file civil action. Eleanor Vance looked like someone's grandmother until she spoke. Declaratory judgment to void all fraudulent obligations, damages for credit harm, and potentially punitive damages for the pattern of abuse. Will destroy him financially while the criminal case destroys him legally.
What's our timeline? Austin asked.
Criminal trial in 3 months. Civil can run concurrent. Mercer tapped a folder. But we have an unexpected asset. This morning, Judge Keaton submitted a formal affidavit as a fact witness to the assault. She's volunteering to testify. I blinked. Can she do that as a judge? She witnessed it as a private citizen. She's not presiding over any related cases. Eleanor smiled thinly. Her testimony will be devastating. Judges make exceptional witnesses trained observers. Unimpeachable credibility. Park slid a document across. Your mother took the plea deal. Immunity for testimony about Vernon's financial schemes. She admits knowing about the mortgage fraud. My chest tightened, but I'd expected this. Mom had chosen survival, as always. Just this time, it meant surviving Vernon instead of with him. There's something else, Boone added quietly. We received an anonymous package yesterday. Internal emails from Red Barn Bank. He produced printed screenshots. Email threads between Colin Draper and someone named M. Sheffield, discussing expediting the Quinn application and adjusting verification requirements. The final email was damning. Vernon says she won't find out. Process it like we discussed. Whistleblower. Austin leaned forward. Bank employee with a conscience, likely. These suggest systematic fraud. Vernon wasn't Draper's only problematic client. Mercer's expression hardened. We're forwarding to federal banking investigators. Over the next weeks, the case built momentum like an avalanche. Austin and I spent hours in conference rooms, providing documentation, answering questions, reviewing evidence. The civil complaint Eleanor drafted was a masterpiece of legal aggression, 40 pages detailing every forged document, every fraudulent transaction, every penny of damage to my credit and reputation. The criminal case was equally thorough. Security footage from Northline Systems played on repeat, showing Vernon's rage, his violation of the protective order. The DMV cameras proved I wasn't at the bank. Digital forensics showed the mortgage signatures originated from Vernon's IP address. Then came the psychiatric evaluation mandate. The court ordered Vernon to undergo assessment. Standard for cases involving domestic violence. Dr. Patricia Reeves, the court-appointed psychiatrist, would interview him over 3 sessions. He'll try to manipulate her, I worried to Austin. Let him try. Court psychiatrists have seen every trick. 2 weeks before trial, another breakthrough, Rita Morse, the notary who'd falsified documents, had kept her own insurance, paranoid about Vernon's threats. She'd recorded several of their conversations on her phone. Listen to this. Boone played a clip in Mercer's office. Vernon's voice, tinny but clear. Just backdate it. I'll handle Hallie if she finds out. Always have. Rita. This is fraud. Vernon. Federal crime fraud. Vernon. 500 cash. Tonight. Or I tell your husband about your gambling debts. Mercer stopped the recording. Blackmail. Add it to the charges. The civil case moved faster than expected. Eleanor had filed for summary judgment on the mortgage issue, arguing the evidence was so clear no trial was needed. The hearing was scheduled for next week, before Judge Robert Gonzalez, notably not Judge Keaton, to avoid any appearance of bias. We need to discuss something, Eleanor said after one prep session. Vernon's assets. The house he fraudulently mortgaged is worthless foundation problems, water damage. His truck's been repossessed, construction business dissolved. So even if we win damages, we can place liens on future earnings, garnish any wages. But Hallie, you need to understand the financial victory might be symbolic. I don't care about his money. I meant it. I care about the paper trail showing I owe nothing, my credit restored, my name cleared. She smiled. Then we'll win exactly what matters. 3 days later, my phone rang at 2 a.m. Austin. There's smoke coming from my apartment building's mail area. Fire department's here. My blood chilled. Are you safe? Yeah, evacuated. But Hallie, someone stuffed oily rags near the mailboxes. Attempted arson. I threw on clothes, racing across town. The scene was controlled chaos fire trucks, police cars, residents in pajamas. Austin stood with a detective, pointing to security footage on a laptop. "Too dark to ID," the detective said. "But the timing, your stepfather's in custody, right?" "His cousin isn't," Austin said grimly. "The one who supposedly owns that LLC, Gary Pike, out on federal supervised release." Detective Boone arrived within an hour, reviewing the footage. "We'll investigate, but without clear identification." "Wait," I pointed to the screen. "Go back. There the way he favors his left leg. Vernon's cousin broke that ankle last year. Mom mentioned it at Christmas." It was thin, but enough for questioning. By morning, Gary Pike was in custody, and his phone records showed multiple calls to Vernon in jail. "Conspiracy," Mercer said simply. "They just made our case stronger." The civil hearing came first. Judge Gonzalez reviewed the evidence for 2 hours, asking pointed questions. Vernon's court-appointed attorney looked increasingly defeated as document after document displayed on the courtroom screens. "I've seen enough," Gonzalez finally said. "The evidence is overwhelming. Summary judgment for the plaintiff. All mortgage obligations are void. Declared fraudulent ab initio. Damages to be determined at later hearing." Eleanor squeezed my hand. First victory, more to come. Outside the courthouse, Austin waited with champagne. "Cheap stuff," he apologized. "Saving money for the appeals Vernon will definitely file." "Let him appeal from prison." I took a long drink, feeling bubbles burn my throat. Every appeal means more court records showing what he did, more public documentation of his fraud. My phone buzzed. Text from Mom. "I'm sorry." I showed Austin. He deleted it without a word. We were 3 weeks from criminal trial. The evidence rooms overflowed with boxes, financial records, video files, witness statements, psychiatric reports. Vernon's cousin had flipped, admitting the arson attempt was Vernon's idea. Communicated through coded jail calls. "He's desperate," Boone observed. "Desperate people make mistakes." "He already made his biggest mistake," I replied. "He hit me where justice could see." The civil victory was just the beginning. Criminal trial would be the reckoning, and somewhere in Easton County Jail, Vernon Pike was learning what I'd always known. Sunlight was the best disinfectant, and Judge Mara Keaton had opened the blinds. The smell hit first acrid smoke mixed with lighter fluid. Austin's apartment building stood dark at 3:47 a.m. Residents clustered on the sidewalk in robes and slippers. Fire trucks blocked the street, their lights painting everything in alternating red and white. "Started in the mailroom," Austin explained, voice rough from smoke. "Mrs. Rodriguez saw flames under the door and pulled the alarm." The fire captain emerged from the building, soot-streaked and grim. Accelerant-soaked rags stuffed under the exterior mail slot. Amateur hour, more smoke than fire. Nobody hurt, minor damage. "Arson?" I asked, though I knew. "Attempted. We'll have the investigator out within the hour." Austin's neighbor, an elderly man with a security obsession, shuffled over. "I got cameras on my balcony," he wheezed. "Caught someone by the mailboxes around 3:15, limping." That detail made my spine straighten. Vernon was in jail, but his network wasn't. By dawn, we were in the police station viewing the neighbor's footage on a laptop. The figure was hunched, hood up, but that distinctive left-leaning gait was unmistakable. Gary Pike, Vernon's cousin, recently released on federal supervised release for his own fraud conviction. "Not enough for arrest," Detective Boone said carefully, "but enough to question him." "There's more." Austin pulled out his phone. "I've been recording my calls. Habit from dealing with Vernon. Listen." The voicemail was from 2 days ago. Unknown number. "Your sister's costing my family everything. Vernon's got kids to feed. Back off or things get hot." "Gary's voice," I confirmed. "He called the house once looking for Vernon last Christmas. Same wheeze." Boone took notes. "Keep recording. Document everything. Change your routines." But the real revelation came from an unexpected source. That afternoon, I found a manila envelope tucked under my windshield wiper at work. No postage, no address, inside screenshots of emails between Vernon and Colin Draper at Red Barn Bank. Push the Quinn app through, read one from Vernon's account. She won't check her credit for months. Draper's response, need wet signatures. Can you get them? Give me a week. I've got her old lease agreement. The final screenshot showed a Venmo transaction, $2,000 from Vernon to Colin D44, labeled consulting fee. I drove straight to Ada Mercer's office. She studied the screenshots under a magnifying lamp, checking for digital artifacts. These are genuine, she concluded. Metadata's intact, but anonymous sources are tricky, could be inadmissible. What if we got Draper to authenticate them? He's lawyered up, won't talk, she paused. Unless... Eleanor Vance arrived within 20 minutes. Banking fraud crosses into federal territory. If Draper's looking at FDIC violations, he might flip for a deal. That evening, Austin insisted I stay at his smoke-damaged apartment. They already tried here, he reasoned. Won't hit the same place twice. We were wrong. At 11:43 p.m., something shattered his living room window. A brick wrapped in paper bounced across the floor. Austin grabbed the bat he'd taken to keeping handy while I called 911. The paper was a printout of my LinkedIn profile with "Drop the charges" scrawled across my face in red marker, but they'd made another mistake. The brick was decorative. The kind sold at exactly one landscaping store in town. The kind with embedded serial numbers for inventory tracking. Gary Pike purchased a pallet of these last month, Boone reported the next day. Store has the receipt. Security footage of him loading them. The attempted arson, the brick, the threats Gary had violated his supervised release spectacularly. Federal marshals arrested him at his girlfriend's house, finding more bricks and a cell phone with deleted calls to the county jail. Those calls are recorded, Mercer said with satisfaction. We're pulling them now. The recordings were damning. Vernon, calling collect from jail, using crude code. Make sure my stepdaughter knows family takes care of family. Gary responding, I'll warm her up to the idea. Conspiracy to commit witness intimidation, Park tallied. Solicitation of arson, violation of protective order through proxy. Vernon just added years to his sentence. The investigation widened. The anonymous bank emails had given federal investigators enough for warrants. Red Barn Bank's records revealed Colin Draper had processed 6 suspicious loans over 2 years, all with Vernon-adjacent connections. Within a week, Draper flipped. Faced with federal charges and decades in prison, he chose cooperation. His testimony was devastating. Vernon had run a loose network of identity theft, targeting family members and acquaintances. Draper had facilitated in exchange for kickbacks. There's something else, Draper admitted in his recorded statement. Vernon kept trophies, documents from each fraud, set insurance in case anyone turned on him. Check his storage unit off Highway 68. The storage unit was a goldmine of self-incrimination. Boxes of documents practiced signatures, photocopied IDs, forged applications, but the crown jewel was a leather journal where Vernon had detailed each scheme, including projected profits and actual takes. My name appeared on page 47. H. Mortgage play, $287K borrowed. Flip profit est, $50K. Keep her busy with mom drama if she notices. Austin's page was earlier, Atro credit cards, max and dump. Kid won't check. Too proud to ask for help. There were others, cousins, former employees, even a few romantic partners. Vernon had been a one-man identity theft ring, using familiarity as his weapon. This changes everything, Mercer said, looking at the evidence. This is RICO territory, pattern of criminal enterprise. The fire investigators' report came back definitive arson attempt with amateur accelerants. The security footage from Austin's building, enhanced by the FBI lab, clearly showed Gary Pike's face in one frame where he'd looked up at a light. But the best evidence came from the most unexpected place. One of Vernon's former construction workers, Miguel Santos, contacted Boone directly. I kept copies, he said simply. Vernon never paid me for 3 jobs, made me suspicious. So when he asked me to scan some documents last year, I kept copies. Insurance. You know. The scans included my forged mortgage application, Austin's credit card applications, and 4 others we hadn't even discovered yet. Miguel had timestamps, emails, even a photo of Vernon at the scanner.
Why come forward now? Boone asked.
Saw the news about the arson. My kid lives in that building. You don't mess with kids. With Miguel's evidence, the case was ironclad. Vernon faced state charges for assault, intimidation, fraud, and conspiracy, federal charges for RICO violations, wire fraud, and running a criminal enterprise. Gary faced his own federal charges, plus violation of supervised release. He'll die in prison, Eleanor said bluntly, between state and federal sentences, consecutive serving. He's looking at 40 years minimum. He's 53 now. That night, Austin and I sat in his boarded-up living room, eating takeout by lamplight. The apartment still smelled like smoke, but he refused to leave.
We're winning, he said quietly. Really winning.
Yeah, I touched my ear, still sensitive where Vernon had hit me outside traffic court, all because Judge Keaton opened a door. Think he knows yet, in his cell, that he's finished. I thought about the journal, the meticulous recording of his crimes. Vernon's arrogance had been his downfall, but it was more than that. He'd believed in his own invincibility because we'd been silent so long. He's starting to understand, I said. Every new charge, every flip witness, every piece of evidence we find, he's watching his empire collapse. Good, Austin raised his water bottle. To justice. To sunlight, I countered. We drank to that, to exposure, to truth, to the slow grinding wheels of justice that Vernon Pike had thought he could outrun. He'd been wrong. The Easton County Courthouse had never seemed so small. Every seat filled, media relegated to an overflow room, and a line of hopeful spectators snaking around the block. Vernon Pike's trial had become the talk of Ohio local man's identity theft ring unraveled by stepdaughter he assaulted. I sat in the front row, Austin beside me, our hands clasped like children at a funeral. Across the aisle, Mom perched at the edge of her seat, carefully not looking our way. She'd lost weight, her blazer hanging loose, wedding ring absent. All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Hoffman presiding. Not Keaton, she'd recused herself as a witness. Judge Hoffman commanded the room differently, steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Vernon entered in shackles, orange jumpsuit replacing his usual construction-branded polos. 6 months in county jail had aged him. His swagger was gone, replaced by darting eyes and compulsive jaw-clenching. ADA, Mercer opened strong. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll see how one man weaponized family trust, how Vernon Pike spent years stealing identities, forging documents, and destroying credit histories. And when his stepdaughter discovered his crimes, he tried to silence her through violence. The projector flickered to life. There I was on screen, stumbling against the courthouse railing, Vernon's hand drawing back from the strike. The footage was grainy but clear. Several jurors winced. This assault, Mercer continued, was witnessed by Judge Mara Keaton, who you'll hear from today. Vernon's attorney, Paul Brennan, looked defeated already. His opening statement tried painting Vernon as a desperate businessman, crushed by economic downturn, making poor choices to save his family's home. Poor choices, Mercer would later repeat in her rebuttal, like choosing to forge his stepdaughter's signature 67 times. The first witness was Officer Martinez, who'd responded to the courthouse assault. He testified with cop precision time, location, visible injuries, Vernon's demeanor. The body camera footage played next. Vernon's voice clear, "This is family business." Was the victim related to the defendant? Mercer asked. Stepdaughter, she said. And in your experience, does family relationship exempt someone from assault charges? No, ma'am. Assault is assault. Judge Keaton took the stand after lunch. She wore a simple black suit, no robes, but her presence filled the courtroom. She testified to exactly what she saw: the strike, my stumble, Vernon's aggressive posture. What made you intervene? Mercer asked. I witnessed a crime in progress. My duty as an officer of the court and a citizen required action. Brennan tried to shake her on cross-examination. You didn't see what preceded the altercation. I saw a man strike a woman hard enough to send her into a stone railing, Keaton replied evenly. Nothing preceding that would justify such violence. Colin Draper testified next, sweating through his plea deal. He detailed Vernon's loan scheme, the kickbacks, the forged documents. The prosecution displayed each fraudulent signature on the courtroom screens, my name written by Vernon's hand, getting sloppier as his desperation grew. He said she'd never check, Draper mumbled. Said family doesn't sue family. The forensic accountant walked the jury through the money trail. $287,000 in fraudulent mortgages, $45,000 in credit cards, opened in Austin's name. Another $100,000 spread across 6 other victims. The numbers climbed as she spoke, each figure another brick in Vernon's cell. Day 2 brought the physical evidence. Detective Boone presented the storage unit findings, the journal, the practice signatures, the photocopied IDs. The prosecutor had Vernon's handwriting blown up poster size, comparing real signatures to forgeries. Note the pressure points, the handwriting expert testified. Classic indicators of tracing. The defendant literally placed paper over genuine signatures and traced them. Miguel Santos testified about scanning documents for Vernon, providing the digital timestamps that proved I was in Detroit when I'd supposedly signed mortgage papers. His quiet dignity contrasted sharply with Vernon's increasing agitation at the defense table. The recorded jail calls played next. Vernon's voice filled the courtroom, instructing Gary to warm up his problem. Gary's response about making things hot. The arson attempt photos followed Austin's building. The charred mailroom. The recovered accelerant-soaked rags. Mom testified on day 3. She looked small on the stand, voice barely reaching the microphone. Under her immunity deal, she admitted knowing about the mortgage scheme. He said Hallie had agreed, she whispered. Said she was helping but didn't want Austin to know. Did you believe that Mercer pressed? I wanted to. Mom finally looked at me. I wanted to believe my daughter would help us. Even though she'd filed a protective order against your husband. Mom's silence stretched. I was afraid, she finally said. Of losing my home, of Vernon, of facing the truth. The defense's case was anemic. Character witnesses who barely knew Vernon, an economist discussing construction industry downturns. Brennan didn't put Vernon on the stand too risky with his temper. Closing arguments came Friday morning. Mercer stood before the jury, remote control in hand. Let me show you what Vernon Pike saw. Click. The traffic court footage. He didn't see Judge Keaton step out. Click. DMV footage of him entering the bank alone. He didn't see cameras recording his lies. Click. The storage unit journal. He didn't imagine keeping detailed records would convict him. Click. His mugshot. Vernon Pike believed he was invisible, that family connections made him untouchable. You have the power to show him otherwise. Brennan's closing rang hollow economic anxiety, family pressure, mistakes rather than malice. The jury looked unconvinced. We waited 3 hours. Austin paced. Mom sat frozen. I stared at the courtroom doors until they opened. We, the jury, find the defendant Vernon Pike guilty of assault in the 2nd degree, guilty of identity theft in the 1st degree, guilty of forgery, guilty of witness intimidation. The list continued, guilty on all charges. Vernon's face went gray, then red. He turned to stare at me as officers moved to cuff him. This is your fault, he mouthed. No, this was his. Judge Hoffman scheduled sentencing for the following month, but revoked bail immediately. The defendant has shown a pattern of escalating violence and intimidation. Remand to custody. They led Vernon out in shackles. He'd return for federal trial in 3 months, facing RICO charges that would add decades. But this victory was enough for now. Outside, Austin hugged me hard. We did it. Justice did it, I corrected. We just told the truth. Mom approached hesitantly. Hallie, No, I held up my hand. Your testimony helped convict him. That's enough, but we're done. She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks, and walked away. Austin and I stood on the courthouse steps where everything had started, where Vernon had hit me, where Judge Keaton had seen. "Hungry?" Austin asked. "Starving." We walked to his car, past the spot where Vernon had struck me 8 months ago. The cameras still blinked overhead, watching, recording, protecting. In the end, Vernon Pike was right about one thing: family doesn't sue family. They prosecute, and they win. The sentencing hearing arrived on a gray Thursday morning. Vernon entered the courtroom 20 pounds lighter, his orange jumpsuit hanging loose. The swagger that had terrorized our family for over a decade had evaporated entirely. Judge Hoffman reviewed the pre-sentencing report with clinical precision. "Mr. Pike, you've been convicted of assault, identity theft, forgery, and witness intimidation. The federal charges pending include RICO violations carrying mandatory minimums. Do you have anything to say before sentencing?" Vernon stood slowly, his attorney's hand on his elbow. For a moment, I thought he might apologize. Instead, his jaw set in that familiar stubborn line. "I was trying to save my family's home," he said. "Everything I did was for them." Judge Hoffman's expression didn't change. "You stole from your family. Mr. Pike, you assaulted your stepdaughter in broad daylight. You orchestrated witness intimidation from jail. These aren't the actions of a protector." She turned to me. Would the victim like to make a statement? I'd practiced this moment for weeks, but standing there, words felt inadequate. I thought of all the years of silence, of making myself small, of believing this was just how families worked. "Vernon Pike taught me to be quiet," I began, voice steady. "For 29 years, I stayed silent about his anger, his control, his crimes. But silence was his weapon, not mine. When he hit me outside this courthouse, he didn't see Judge Keaton step out. That moment of visibility changed everything." I looked directly at him. "You called me ungrateful. You were right. I'm grateful you made that mistake in public. Grateful your greed left a paper trail. Grateful the justice system still works when victims find their voice." Vernon's face flushed red, but the officers beside him ensured he stayed seated. "On the assault charge," Judge Hoffman announced, "I sentence you to 2 years, on identity theft, 5 years, forgery, 3 years, witness intimidation, 5 years, sentences to run consecutively." 15 years before federal charges, Vernon would be nearly 70 before facing RICO trial. The courtroom erupted in whispers. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "restitution is ordered for all financial damages. Mr. Pike, you'll repay every cent you stole, plus interest and legal fees." The final number was staggering $743,000, including damages and fees. Vernon's few remaining assets would be liquidated, any future earnings garnished. He'd die owing money to the people he'd betrayed. As they let him out, Vernon looked back one last time, not at me, at Mom, who sat rigid in the back row. She didn't meet his eyes. Outside the courthouse, Austin and I stood in the exact spot where everything began. The November air was sharp, clean. Camera crews packed up their equipment, having captured another chapter in small-town justice. Federal trial starts in January, Ada Mercer reminded us. But honestly, this was the important one: the personal crimes, the family betrayal. Eleanor Vance joined us, carrying a folder. "Civil judgments are finalized. Your credit's been restored. Hallie, Austin's too. The fraudulent accounts are expunged. You're both officially debt-free from Vernon's schemes." That evening, we held a small celebration at Riverhouse Cafe, the same place Mom had unknowingly confessed. Detective Boone stopped by, raising his coffee cup in a toast. "To Judge Keaton's timing," he said. "To speaking up," Austin countered. "To the end of silence," I added. 6 months later, the federal trial concluded with guilty verdicts on all RICO charges. Vernon Pike received an additional 25 years, to be served consecutively. He'd entered the system at 53. He'd be eligible for release at 93, if he lived that long. Gary Pike pled guilty to arson and conspiracy charges, receiving 8 years federal time. Colin Draper got 5 years and lifetime ban from banking. The investigation spread, catching 2 more loan officers and a notary in Vernon's network. Mom moved to Florida. Living with her sister, we exchanged Christmas cards, polite, distant, safe. She'd chosen survival again, just differently this time. I couldn't forgive her yet, maybe never would. But I understood her fear. Vernon had controlled through terror for so long. She'd forgotten any other way existed. Austin returned to Columbus but visited monthly. We'd rebuilt our sibling relationship from the ashes of Vernon's crimes, stronger for having fought together. His apartment still smelled faintly of smoke, a reminder that justice came with costs. Red Barn Bank faced federal sanctions and civil lawsuits. They'd enabled Vernon and others like him, prioritizing quick profits over due diligence. The branch where Colin Draper worked closed within a year. I kept working at Northline Systems, but something had changed. Speaking truth to power. Watching justice actually work, it shifted something fundamental. I started volunteering with domestic violence organizations, sharing my story, encouraging others to document everything, to speak up when safety allowed. The protective order I'd filed that November morning became permanent. Not that Vernon could violate it from federal prison, but the paper mattered. Official recognition that what happened was wrong, that I deserved safety. That family connection didn't excuse violence. Sometimes I drove past the courthouse, looking at that side door Judge Keaton had emerged from. Such a small moment, a door opening at the right time, but it had toppled Vernon's empire of control, exposed years of crimes, freed multiple victims from financial ruin. One evening, almost a year after the first trial, I received a letter forwarded through the prosecutor's office. Judge Keaton had written, "Ms. Quinn, I followed the case outcomes. Your courage in pursuing justice inspired many in our legal community. That morning, I simply witnessed a crime. You transformed that moment into systematic change. Thank you for not staying silent." I framed that letter, hung it where I could see it every morning. A reminder that one person speaking up, one witness stepping forward, one moment of visibility could change everything. Vernon Pike had believed in the power of silence, isolation, and family shame. He'd built his criminal enterprise on the certainty that victims wouldn't risk exposure, wouldn't pursue justice, wouldn't break the family code. He'd been wrong. In the end, it wasn't complicated. He hit me. A judge saw. I spoke up. The system responded. And Vernon Pike, the man who'd terrorized our family for over a decade, who'd stolen identities and destroyed credit, who'd believed himself untouchable behind family walls, he learned that justice didn't stop at the front door. Some chains are meant to be broken. Some silences are meant to be shattered. And sometimes, all it takes is one door opening at exactly the right moment. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Please leave a comment below and share your thoughts on this journey of justice and speaking truth to power. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and don't forget to press the hype button to help more people discover and hear this story. Your support means everything.